Hey guys, welcome back to Whiteboard Friday. This is Noel Coleman, and today I want to talk to you about the case for consumerism. Over the last 12 to 18 months, we have been getting a lot of conversations and questions from clients about patient experience transparency and what does this mean for them, and patient experience transparency is a trend that they really want to be taking advantage of. How, why, what are the benefits, all of those sorts of things. And so today I just want to touch on about 4 things that I think begin to lay a foundation for understanding this. And if you want to get a little bit more in depth, we're actually putting an infographic that's got a lot more information in here about that. And I know there's a lot of stats on the board today, but there's going to be even more in this infographic that's going to be really useful for you on our blog. Go check that out. We also will do other sessions in the future about how to roll out transparency and how to get around those kind of items. But to begin with, I want to start off by pointing out, for example, the CMS has done some research and studies, and they've said that by 2020 they expect a 33% increase in healthcare costs. So obviously there's more money coming into the system as far as costs go, and a lot of that is having to be pushed onto employees through their health insurance plans. And so that's going to be a problem. So we're trying to, as an industry, as a country, we're trying to manage that. Another part of this is that inflation is projected to be at 6.5% by 2020, which, just to give you a little bit of context for those of you who don't deal in those numbers a lot, at this rate, healthcare will double in cost about every 11 years. So it's an enormous situation. And so there's a lot of cost coming into this. And so one of the ways the government has focused on, and this is from the Kaiser Foundation, they've talked about high deductible health insurance plans. And so this is a way for the government to say, okay, some of this cost burden does need to go back to consumers, and so we're going to have them pay more out of pocket. And part of that is to drive an accountability. And so, right now, high deductible health plans are only about 20% in the country. So there's an enormous amount of room for this to grow. And you're already beginning to see, as we'll talk about here in a minute, a lot more people spending more and therefore shopping more. Because the more you have to spend out of pocket, the more you want to make sure you're getting what you're paying for. So the question is, then how do people make decisions? How do consumers make decisions about this stuff? And there's a couple of things. There's a lot of stats here, and there's plenty of things we can draw from it, but I really think that there's about 3 really, really important things. Number one here, you look at this, it says 44% of people say they will go out of network for good reviews. And so here's the thing, is that when you look at the reasons why most people will choose a doctor, most important factors, still to this day, number one most important factor being in network in their insurance, because obviously they've got to be able to pay for the doctor. So for 44% to say that they're willing to go out of network for a physician based on better reviews tells you a lot about this. The other component here is looking at the quality, the definition of what quality is. So if you ask consumers, how do you judge quality in a physician? 5 of the top 10 items are all about experience, not actually outcomes. And even though there's been research to show these two things have been tied together very intricately, that is a very telling thing. Now, the final piece that I think is really interesting here is this stat down here. It says 15% say overall ratings and number of reviews is important. And so what they're saying is when you ask what part of a review actually is important to you, that 15%, people are saying 15% of people are saying that the overall review is important. So what that tells you is that people are looking for more than simple math, right? They're not just going on there and saying, oh, the overall review is a 4.5, okay, that's enough for me. They're wanting to see what are the patterns of the comments, what are the details behind this, how does it break down in individual questions and things like that. So they're hungrier for deeper knowledge. You can't just put some very broad, standardized, not detailed information up. People want to know more. So that is another component of this. Now the question is, how much do people care about online reviews? And this really comes down to the question of, should we be transparent with our data, or should we try to manage third-party sites, or what is this strategy, or should we just ignore the whole thing because online review sites are just bogus anyway? Well, the reality is that 1/3 of your patients are saying that they would select a doctor based on good reviews, and another 1/3 of them would stay away from doctors who have bad reviews. So the reality is that reviews matter. So the question at this point isn't really whether or not patients care or use this information, but more whether or not you want to be in control of that conversation and be able to put out more statistically valid data. So patients do care. Now the other part of this is, well, how do I get my physicians engaged with this? Because they're like anybody else. They're asking, what's in it for me? Well, the reality is that transparency has been shown in multiple studies to increase accountability, encourage innovation, improve performance. In fact, they've even shown that even in situations, and this is actually some studies that were done in the UK and in various other places as well as in the US, that even though patients or the consuming public weren't actually accessing this information all that much, just because the health care providers knew that their peers and associates were able to see this information transparently, that was enough for them to change behavior. So this is actually really good for the healthcare industry as a whole, just on its own merit. And the other thing is, and this is sort of a calming thing, we've seen this many times in different studies, 90+% of all reviews that are done online tend to be positive. And so, in fact, using your survey data captures an even greater proportion of those positive comments, because you are able to capture what's called the silently satisfied majority. All those people who are not extremely happy, extremely mad, the people right in the middle who would never go online to post something but have good things to say, which again kind of comes back to this 15% saying, hey, the overall score is important to me. They want more in-depth information. It gives you more of that 80% silently satisfied majority, gives you more data to show them the patterns and the depth of the information that they really want to see. So these are sort of some big, broad ideas and some statistics behind them. And hopefully that helps a bit. But again, go check out our website. You can see our more in-depth blog, and this should give you a way to help your organization move towards transparency. And until next time, thanks a lot.